And we're back with another episode of On the Record with Tiffany here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, my home where I started, and also with my partner, the African American Network Television, where we have a local feel and a global reach. And today I have a special guest, Mr. William Tutt. Mr. Tutt, you want to tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is William Tutt. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, and I also wear the title of criminal justice behavioral consultant. I have over 20 years of experience in dealing with at-risk youth, gang members, the prison population, and also studying the effects that poverty has on its inhabitants, but also studying post-traumatic slavery disorder, which affects African American descendants as well as, the white descendants of slavery. I have lived in San Antonio most of my life since 1972 when me and my mom moved here. And,
how old were you in 72?
In 1972, I was 2 years old, so that makes me 51 years today. I was a baby. Yeah, that's right. I was a baby. Yes. I published a manuscript titled Urban Psychotherapy, a professional outlook to understand the hood mentality and the urban identity theory. It's a manuscript that has all of my research in it, and it also has my diagnosis of what poverty and slavery, has done to the mindset of the inhabitants on this earth. I've also studied the prison population and the mental behavioral condition that arises while a person is incarcerated, and also what happens to them post-incarceration. What happens to the mental processes then?
Wow, that's a lot to... Okay, so I want to break this apart and let the world see why you do what you do, because I think that's important when anybody is trying to understand something. A person, it's one thing to study a particular subject, but when an individual knows what that life is and knows what people are facing,
yes,
that makes what you do a little bit more intense. Like you're going to dig deeper and go further than the average person would.
More meaningful.
Yeah, It really does, because you know what needs to happen, and you know what that somebody can come back from the worst moment in life. They can come back.
Yes, we can.
So tell us about your life.
My life. I'll go to possibly the negative part of my life to lead up to what I'm doing now. So in 1983 in Los Angeles, California, I got inducted into the 9-9 Mafia Crip gang at the age of 13. And when I came back to Texas, I could be considered, as far as the files are concerned, one of the first Crips on record, in Texas at that time.
I want to stop you there.
Yes.
At 13 years old, you're just a child.
Yes.
You're just a child at 13. Unfortunately, in our society, 13, if you're 13 and black,
you're an adult.
That's exactly right. The penal system sees you as an adult, and decisions have been made that that's how we're going to see a 13-year-old. But the reality is that at 13 years old, you're not capable of making good decisions yet, because you're just a child. You're seeking something. You're seeking belonging at 13 years old.
I absolutely agree. And to talk about the psychological effects of being 13 is that you're not making a grown folk decision. You're making a decision that's influenced, by your environment. And, I would first like to say that, I'm not proud of, what I've done and what I became and all those that I've influenced to become gang members, because I understand now, what I've done to another person's life by influencing them in that manner. Now, you got to understand that, at that age and as I got older and began to understand what the gang life and what my position was really about. Because see, I was never one that was considered to be a gang banger. I never, took action towards another rival set or another man of color. I was into it, for the drugs, for the women, and for the robbery. Because my name in the set was 211. And 211 is the code for robbery in California. And that's what I did. I robbed jewelry stores, cashiers, and I lost 13 years of my life in prison because of that. I went to prison at the age of 19, and I didn't get out till I was 31 years old, and I'm 51 years old today.
Wow.
But while I was in prison, and this is a story that I love to share with everyone, I was chasing after someone in the school building, and I ran into a classroom, and the teacher said, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And I said, "Man, you better mind your own business." And I looked around and I left. And when I left up out of that class, the student said, "Hey, do you know who that is? That's Tutt. You don't want to mess with him. He speaks for the blacks, and he's the leader of the Crips, and he has a lot of power around here." So I guess that conversation really affected Dr. Al Cook. And about 2 weeks later, I seen Dr. Al Cook while I was walking on the concrete. Inmates walk on the sides, staff and security guards walk in the middle. So Dr. Cook stopped me and he said, "Hey, can I have a word with you?" And I stopped. So my homie stopped too, like my security detail or whatnot. And he was like, "Can I have a word with you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "In private." I said, "No, if you got to say something, you can say it in front of the homies." And then he was like, "I just want to ask you one question because I seen how you came in my classroom the other day." So it started clicking. I said, "Oh, that's who this guy is." He said, "Are you going to continue to lead your people to destruction?" And I looked at him. And I said, "What?" He said, "Why don't you come and take one of my psychology courses?" So shout out, man, first of all, ain't nobody finna F with my mind. I already got it going on. I know what's going on with me. I don't need nobody to help me make decisions or change my mindset, right? So I carried on about my business. So later when I went back to my holding cell, I was playing chess with an elder. And he had already been locked up 15 years. So I told him about the situation, the scenario that happened. He said, "Man, that's Dr. Al Cook over the psychology department at Athens, Texas." He said, "You need to go ahead and take one of his courses." So I listened to the elder and I went and took one of his sociology courses. And 6 years later, I took every single psychology course that was available because I realized that I was not making my own decisions, that my environment, the music, and my peers were influencing the decisions that I was making. So I decided to study psychology and to further my education in that field. But what I realized was that people of color, people suffering from poverty, are being misdiagnosed because if Caucasians are the only test subjects, and for me to derive this research and these diagnoses and these theories from, then how can I apply that to someone that's suffering from poverty or people of color? Because our environment dictate different type of behaviorisms. The mechanisms and the structure is totally different. Poverty, it is a design paradigm. It is designed to create people with negative behavioral problems, people who are more attracted to crime than you are to education, people who have been conditioned, and we'll talk about that more, to divide the household and to say that it's okay, and it's really not.
Wow. So tell me, okay, for you personally, what was it that really, at what point did you really make that switch? Because taking a psychology course or taking multiple psychology courses, at some point you took something switched in you. So what was that? How did you decide, okay, I'm going to go from taking this course, like this is speaking to me, and now I'm going to change the trajectory of my life? Like, because changing everything that you did had to influence the guys that were following you. It had to influence, because you're going against the group mindset.
Yes, you're
all
right.
of a sudden.
Now let me break that down, and that was a very good point, Tiffany. So as I was awakening within myself, I still had to be this tough dude on the outside.
Yeah. So how did you do that?
100% Crip. It says Mafia Crip on my back, South Texas OG. So people were still looking up to me, but what I did was, this was the pivotal moment when I kept a locker box, and when new guys would come in or whatever, that didn't have much, we would give them a hygiene package. So one of the young guys came over. He might have been about 23 or so at that time. And I gave him maybe about $50 worth of commissary and hygiene for him, to get on his feet. Yeah, it's a lot. So later on, when he got himself situated, he came back down and he whispered in my ear, "Say, OG, let me tell you something. If you ever need anything, you just let me know. I'll do it, whatever. All you got to do is say the word." And right then and there, I said, "Now see, this is what Dr. Cook is talking about. I can lead this man down the wrong path, or I could sit him down and show him what I'm learning and how I'm transforming in life." So what I began to do after that, because I was very heavily into the Islamic community, because on Saturdays I could go down there and give what's called a khutbah, which means an opening talk. So that's what I started doing. I started going down there talking about my research, talking about how I was wrong for telling you to do this and you to do that and leading you down the wrong path. Because now I'm seeing that I'm not making a conscious choice. My choice is being influenced. You see what I'm saying? And at that moment, when that guy whispered in my ear and I looked at him, and all I could say was, "All right, little homie, I got you." To still play this tough role on the inside, but I'm playing dominoes, and in my mind, I'm like, I can't do this no more. You understand what I'm saying?
Because it's not right.
It's not right for me to lead people down the wrong path. So even guys that know me from prison, they'll tell you, this man made a change, and he started working in G building, talking to the warden, talking to the major, trying to get a better conditioning, a better living conditioning for our people. I tried to talk to the Mexican gangs, the white gangs, and the black gangs to be peaceful. Don't you see that this conditioning, this environment is causing us to want to go at it? But at night, at 10 o'clock at night, we all get the same doors closed in our same face. We all living up under the same conditions. But they didn't realize that. Some of them did, and some of them different. So that's why I brought the GRIP program, which is gang rehabilitation in progress here. And this is what I practice here. I try to help gang members and at-risk youth and those coming out of prison to understand the cognitive behavioral dissonance, that we have from our Caucasian counterparts.
So when you started making this change and people saw it, what did that do amongst the guys that followed you?
Many of them didn't have the opportunities like I did, in other words, to set up a meeting with the mayor, set up a meeting with the city council members, and set up this, because first of all, you have to have a plan, you have to have a module, you have to have these types of things together. You have to have your 501c3 in order, you have to have your DUNS number, your SAMS number, and all of these things.
A lot of things that you don't even realize.
That I didn't even realize until I got into the political game as far as trying to get funded and grant money. And so a lot of my peers are not going to take that time and do their research, because they got to get out there and hustle, because the bill is due. And that's what the environment dictates. So I took it upon myself to go out there and get this money, so that I can come out into the streets and show individuals and teach them and train them, so that our mission statement is to enable positive thought during challenging and critical situations. Because during challenging and critical situations, all we think about is fight or flight. See, and we do not have any other options.
And you go right back to the thing.
You go right back to the thing that you know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's it. I mean, that is a fact about the human condition, is that whatever it is that is your compass, you're going to go directly back to your compass. You can change that compass, but it takes work. And it takes work for the individual to change the compass. And it doesn't help if you have an environment that is toxic to you. It doesn't help. We have so many things. I say this to my family. My family and I talk about this all the time, that right now we've had a pandemic.
Yes.
And I really, I certainly try to look at things in an analytical manner, but at the same time, there's still the God manner, And I grew up. I understand what you're saying about Islam. I'm a Christian, but I grew up in Saudi Arabia. Part of my time was there, and lived in a little city called Yanbu, Saudi Arabia, between Mecca and Medina. So I understand the Islamic faith and how beautiful a faith it actually is, not as it has been villainized here.
Yes.
Into one monolithic view, which is something that we do a lot in the United States, and we shouldn't do that. We will take a monolithic view of any group. We take a monolithic view of black people, a monolithic view of conservatives, a monolithic
and that
view
becomes a view of millions.
Yes, and it's wrong. It's wrong to do that in any case, and especially with that particular religion, because when we lived there, you could leave your doors open, and I mean, it was just it was a very a beautiful place. The waters weren't overfished. You could snorkel, and it was just a beautiful place to be. But when we're talking about creating an environment, we have food deserts, we have illness in our bodies and in our minds. And when you look at this pandemic, it's literally still the earth. And I always say this was God's way to say stop and listen and reevaluate what you're doing. Those of you who have the ability to stand up and who have a platform, use it, and use it properly. To make a change for people, because to expect a government to handle everything, well, governments don't do a very good job of that. We see that all over the world.
Not only that, this government was not designed, to help people of color, and that's a whole nother subject within itself. But.
Yeah, and yes, it's not.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, they don't work very efficiently. Period. If you even if you take color out of it, it doesn't work. It's one of those things where we have to utilize what we can utilize here in terms of laws and making change legislatively. Like, that is the first order of business. And then secondly, stand up and help the people around you and charge them with helping people around them. And that's what I see when I look at what you're doing. Yes, you may have made some mistakes because you were a child thrust into an adult decision as a child, making an adult decision, looking for something, seeking something that you should have had, but you didn't, and finding it in a gang. Because I've seen so many things on, just researching what draws someone to a gang or a cult, because it's the same sorts of things that draw people.
It starts from childhood. It starts from your adolescence and the things that you're inputting and the parents are allowing you to be input into your mind. But some things we are not in control of, and we'll talk about that, which is verbal subliminal suggestions. So what
would you say starts in childhood? Like, how can you prevent that in your kids? I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. A lot of our listeners have kids and grandkids, who are influenced by culture.
The thing is that, like, my research shows that many individuals that are involved in negative behavior cycles, making bad choices, can't keep employment down, can't keep a relationship no more than a year, in and out of prison, in and out of jail, always catching minor cases or even felony cases. They fall into a negative behavior cycle. So what we have to do is, first of all, look at the dynamics of the home. What's going on in the home? How much stress and anxiety is in the home? Because PBT is parental behavior transference. Not only do we transfer our skin color, our hair color, our eyes, but we also transfer our anxieties, our alcoholisms, different behaviors, and different preconditioned belief systems that we'll get into in a minute. And what that does is it already presets a pattern for the child to follow. So children that do not follow that pattern, I'm just going to use this as an example. I'm a football player. I played football all my life, but my son wants to dance. So I have to support that part of his life and not make him try to follow my pattern. So now let's go to the negative part. Every day my son is riding with me and I'm listening to shoot that, kill that, smoke that, drink that at the age of 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we are already programming, we're putting a negative behavioral app into the brain already, so that when the stimuli is there to activate that app, it's just like when you touch it on the screen. You touch the app, you said install, right, and then you hit run. And it's the same thing with the mental concept, but we have to study the dynamics of the home.
I 100% believe that because because you can see that. Like, you can see that, and you can see it in your own. Even if a person doesn't have the capacity to see it elsewhere, you can see it in your own home with your own kids. You know, you can see it.
But do you, like, say for instance, the individuals that are influence their children in a negative way, they do not conceive that conception. They do not, you know, it's not, they're not able to say that what I'm doing or what I'm telling my child is wrong because my mother did it, my grandmother did it. So,
and maybe they're not seeing it as wrong because they're not
Exactly.
even actually telling their child this. If they're playing music or
That's my point.
or something,
Right.
they're like, well, this is normal.
Right.
It's what everybody does.
Right.
You know, but that thinking reinforces stuff that people say, like, black people don't. Black people don't. Like, I've had people say to me, "Oh, you speak another language?" Black people don't speak other languages. Yes, we do. We speak plenty of it. There are literally millions of black people who
Yes.
speak other languages.
I agree.
Literally
I
millions. You know, like, to tell me something like that is ludicrous to make a statement like that. But that statement is made often. If you say that to children and you go into certain environments and talk to the kids, they think that black people don't talk this way, or you don't speak with a certain diction. You're trying to sound white. There is no sounding white. There is educated and uneducated. That's what those two things are. But somehow this has gotten into our community. It's a lie from the pit of hell. that to be educated and black is to somehow not be
Black.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which that is a source of infuriation for
Yes,
me.
it is.
It's a source of infuriation, and it's a lie that wasn't even put in the black community by black people. You know, but yet we're walking around believing it and perpetuating it by saying certain things are and aren't black. And I'm just like, there's no such thing as diction, as education being exclusive to any group.
That is correct.
None of that is
But our
exclusive to any
environment
group.
dictates that.
That's right. Our environment tells our kids that, and especially kids in the most vulnerable environment, which is, you know, it's the pain of our society, and it should be the pain of everybody's heart that these beautiful children are being sucked into a world before they even know it, that they don't belong in, that
Correct.
isn't theirs. You've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany, and I'm here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, my home, and representing the African American Network, where we have a local reach and a global feel. And I have had a wonderful time talking with William Tutt, and we will be back to talk some more
Absolutely.
about what we can do in our neighborhoods to improve the lives of our children, what kind of agency we have as parents and as human beings to do the right thing for our kids and to make the right decisions for ourselves, because we can. And we hail from kings and queens. Always remember that. Always remember that, black people. The very theology, the very things that we hold dear, reading, writing, all of those things, that came from us. Those things came from us. This is a life that you can have. This life was meant for you. You have agency. You have power. You've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany. Come back. Let's talk some more.